Say hi to Milo.
Hello, Milo.
He even said hi.
Part of the Zoom today. What does he have to say?
What do you have to say, Milo?
Nothing.
Nothing. No, he's in the mood for attention, let me tell you.
Well, welcome to Life Stuff,
Welcome to Life Stuff.
where stuff in life is always happening.
Oh, the truth of it all.
Yesterday was one of those days, and it's very ironic.
Hmm.
Um, the universe can, how do I want to say this? I love the universe,
Hmm.
but it likes to play games. It likes to fuck with you. That's the best way to put it. Because yesterday I had a day that I haven't had, I can't remember the last time I had, where everything just flowed and worked, and it's the kind of day I wish I could have every day. I mean, I went on my hike, which is my favorite thing to do, my happy place in a place called Boko. And I walked up to the street, the bus was like right there, got there, walked, and the tide was really out. I've never seen it that out in the 5 years that I've been doing that walk. So I was able to walk places in between rocks and along the water that I've never been able to walk before. So it was a whole new experience, and it was amazing. And then I got to the place where I was going, which I don't normally go that far, but because I could walk along the beach, and then the boat was right there. Like it was just there, t- you know, letting
Synchronicity.
people off.
Yeah.
And then when I got back, well, besides falling on my coccyx,
Mhm.
um, the bus was right there. And then I came home and I did something that I haven't done in this place in 3 years, is I went in the pool.
Oh,
Never gone in the pool. So that was part of that day. And then I asked my neighbor below me, Val, who's a great guy, obviously been my neighbor since I've been here. And one of the reasons I'm very sad for leaving, because we have a really nice relationship. It's my age, just a sweet, sweet man. Anyway, I asked him if he wants to go for dinner with me on Friday. So
nice.
that sure. And then I asked my real estate agent and his husband if they want to go for dinner on Saturday, and they said yes.
Yeah.
And I struggle with social things here and friends, and I really don't have any or many. But everything just worked. And then I had a massage.
Yes.
So it was like one of those days, and now between last night and the last couple of days I've been doing this, I'm really decluttering my space and throwing out stuff and taking stuff with me. And it actually looks really cool. It looks now like a place that could easily be rented without any
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Which then brings up like, well, why the hell didn't I just rent this or Airbnb it instead of selling it? And I've been going back and forth with that, and why, and I'm sad, but I still, at the end of the day, I just still have to trust that there is a bigger reason that this is happening. And I think it has to do with whatever it is I'm going to do, whether it's traveling or spending more time with my mom or
Mhm.
something. I know there's a reason. And at the end of the day, I can always come back.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I really only like it here 3 or 4 months of the year. So that was my day. And I wrote in my journal, and it's like, yeah, that's the kind of days that I want to have. And most of it was just doing my own thing. And,
Yeah.
I'm,
But there was something in the day where you were okay that you were doing it by yourself. Because there has been other times when I think, and we all do this, you sort of wallow in the what I wish I was doing with this with other people.
yeah.
And that immediately puts a different filter on the day.
Yeah.
Whereas for some reason you were, and I'm curious if you know, not necessarily why, but like, I wonder, those days aren't possible every day. That's impossible. But more days than not are possible. It'll be different every time that happens. It's not going to be the same kind of day, but the feeling of the day is possible more often than not, I think.
Yeah. I'm just gonna correct you a little bit here, is that when I do things, most of the things that I do, because I'm so used to it and I'm accepting it more and more,
Mhm.
I'm quite happy to do my own thing. I if I want to watch something, I watch it when I want to watch it, what I
Yeah.
want to watch. If I decide anything,
Yeah.
I can just do it.
Mhm.
I had a friend here on the weekend. It didn't work out, and it was like it's just another reminder. Wow, unless you really find the right person that gels and that fits into your life, like why would you want to be with someone? The
Yeah.
thing that I struggle with is when I hear about like my real estate agent was telling me that he went to this big pool party on the weekend that this guy has every year in this beautiful place. And then he went out to dinner with 10 people and went to see this entertainment. It's when I hear stuff like that, that's when I go, oh, like I don't do that. And I've always wanted to be ever since I can remember, a part of a group of people.
Yeah.
And I would get in, but they kind of spit me out. So it's when I hear that stuff, when I see all these people having this, doing all this stuff on Facebook, that's when I think, yeah, it'd be nice to have a group of people, or it would be nice to have someone to hang out with. But it only happens when I hear other people doing that stuff.
And I would add to that 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 experience, what it looks like is not what it feels like when you're in it. What you
Right?
think it looks like is this rich experience with so many people and so much energy and so much happiness, and it can involve that, but not everybody there is having that much fun, because everybody has their own version of what they would prefer to do as opposed to what they've conceded to do. And that's relationships, right? We have to, if my partner says we're going to a pool party, it's my best friend, I would really want you to come, part of being in a relationship is honoring that to some degree.
Yeah.
But you may not have, but that partner may not have been having the greatest time. They had an okay time, maybe, but maybe they would have rather gone on a walk alone and would have enjoyed that. And so I think it is a balance. Like, of course, wanting that and experiencing that is, those moments are amazing too, but they aren't, I don't think they're as much of a pinnacle as people might make them in their mind to be because of what they see in a picture or a video, which is the hard part. Or even when people talk about, you've gone to a party and you're like, it was amazing. Was it amazing? Like, did you actually have an amazing time? Or was it weird small talk with weird people and just sort of like my experience is that parties have been both. Sometimes they're amazing, and sometimes they're just like, you're just like trying to look for a normal person to talk to in a room full of strange people. No judgment to these people, but I think, yeah, I only say it because it's both. It's valid to want it, and it's also,
Well, if I can add to that, I mean, I think there's a lot of validity in what you say because you talk to a lot of people who are in relationship who would like not to be in relationship or who would like to experience being on their own,
yeah,
but they've been in relationship for years and years and years.
yeah,
And then you have people like me who've been alone for most of their life who like, I just want to experience what it's like to be in a relationship. But then sometimes I think, well, do I really? I mean, it's like when you're used to something, if you've been in a relationship for 20, 30 years, I mean, that's your life.
yeah,
That's like a straight couple who's been married and has kids and it's part of your life. You may do different things in your life, you may be open, but at the end of the day, you're together and you're staying together. When you're alone, that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
And you know that I am about to go through a big change, and tomorrow is the last day of owning my condo.
Yeah.
I'll still be here for a few more days, but it's even though I know it was coming, I mean, and I'm trying not to get too worked up about it.
Mhm.
You know, I love my place more than I ever have, and it's probably because I'm losing it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's going to be tough. I mean, I've supposed to leave next Wednesday. I've decided to come back earlier to Toronto. I'm coming on Monday. So I
Mhm.
have 4 days left. And it's going to be, I was thinking last night, like closing the door. Now, yes, I'm supposed to come in here for 3 months and rent it, but let's say I don't.
Yeah.
It's closing the door on a chapter and opening, not even opening a new chapter, because I don't know what that chapter is.
Mhm.
And I mean, that goes back to what we talked about, the last time is the unknown. It's just,
Yeah.
and I keep saying, I've got to trust it. I got to trust it. And it doesn't even matter what it is. You
No,
know, a decision was made and now let's see where that goes.
exactly. And it's okay to, in these moments of transition, be sad a little bit or whatever the emotion is that isn't necessarily happy, like that you're like that something's ending, something's closing, something's dying, something's over that was amazing. But our memories are very not accurate in that they remember only the best parts because that's the highlight reel of the whole thing. And that's wonderful because you take that with you. But to then wallow in it should have gone on longer
Yeah.
disregards your instincts and your impulse and your inner guidance and connection to the thing we call the universe that was saying this chapter is actually closing so that something new can arrive and you will do new things with the new place.
And it's tough when you're closing a chapter that you thought you always wanted
Yeah.
and your whole life had dreamed about having. And then you're closing that chapter, you
Yeah.
know. But it shouldn't be. I mean, this one's really this is the biggest for me. I
I
mean, I've
agree.
done other things, I lived in California for off and on for 6 years and you know loved that for the time that I was there. I had a cottage for 6 years and loved that
Right.
at a time. And then it was time to move on. And so I'm curious. I'm really just curious as like, okay, so what is it? What's coming?
Yeah.
know?
But
And
it's something based on your past of like you
yeah,
did this for a section of time and then that ended. Then you did this. And so there is and I would bring it back to being in a relationship versus being single, is that those transitions would be very different and maybe wouldn't have happened necessarily had there been two people in the equation
yeah.
deciding these things. And so that's another element of you've been able to literally, when you feel it's time, close the chapter. But when there's more people involved, then that's a different thing, which, pros and cons to that, because then you don't have to go through that alone. But also,
Well, a big part of that too is financial. I mean,
yes,
when people are in couples, uh, they have things together and they can accumulate more things.
yeah.
If they buy a property, it's half and half. They can buy
And
another
selling that,
property.
well, but then selling it, because relationships don't well, they do complicate things, but they make it so that that would have to be a whole nother thing. And is it equal?
True, but I would argue with that and say, it actually allows you to have more.
Yeah.
But yeah, yes, if it ends, it can be an issue because then you've
Yeah.
got all this.
Or
stuff.
if one wants it to end sooner than the other, and then
Right,
there's
right.
resentment builds because we sold that thing that I didn't want to sell, but you wanted to sell it. I mean, and this is not like better or worse. It's just like life presents such different days
Yeah.
for us as single people as opposed to couples who are experiencing a different kind of day.
There's so much involved in it because I mean, do you want to, be on your own and do whatever you want to do and have less,
Mhm.
or do you want to be with someone and have maybe a lot more, but then you've got the whole, well, there's somebody else there. You've got the whole, um, you know, challenges of maybe getting along or not getting along or doing, what they want to do. And so it's a choice we make, and it all comes down to the lessons that we are here to learn in life.
Yeah,
I'll sort of conclude my part by that.
yeah,
And the lessons never stop. I mean,
ever.
again, this past weekend, another lesson. It was like, okay, thank you. I finally get it.
Mhm.
It took me a few um, experiences
Yeah,
to go through it, but yes, I get it. And then the other thing is always goes back to trust,
yeah,
because when you trust, um, you there can still be some angst and some maybe a little bit of yeah, a little bit of
yeah,
angst as to what's next, but if you trust, then it's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. And again, leading back to the lessons and what you're supposed to be doing, who you're supposed to be meeting, where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing job wise, maybe, or if you're retired, which
yeah.
so blah blah blah. It just goes on
Yeah.
and on and on. Um,
I would say trust like relieves the pressure of the future. It's like
yeah.
there will be some angst sometimes because the mind is a very powerful thing too. It wants to know everything about what the future holds. It's just not, but I always say you don't get to know the future because you wouldn't believe the future. If somebody, even if somebody told you, I don't think you'd actually believe the details of how things work out. And so it's meant to be experienced. And that can be frustrating sometimes, but it also is to me the joy. That's maybe too like cliche to say the joy, but that's like the juice of life is the
Well,
experiencing it.
what is that saying? They say like it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Exactly, which is so cliche, but it honestly, I just keep reminding myself of that because there are things that I want to know now that I can't know. And there are some things that I've been waiting for a long time already. But if I think back on other times in my life, kind of like we did with yours, like the phases that you've gone through, if I think back on living in Toronto when I had no intention of moving back to New York yet, to part to now where I am now, which is I sense there's another transition coming soon. And I love that we share these things as two different generations that are best friends. Like because it shows parallels that like life never stops. We share our journeys so that you can see the parallel between that life never stops lifing. Like and yet we're experiencing some different things, but we're also experiencing a lot of the same things, just from different perspectives because of age, because of time. But it's happening to us both.
And it must be interesting for you actually, and anybody that's watching that's your age, and we've always said this, I'm twice your age, that for you to see that the stuff that you're going through, you will always be going through it.
Yep,
No matter how old I'm still going through it. My
exactly.
life continues to change, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and the word that came to me as you were talking also was acceptance.
Mhm.
Is acceptance of what being okay with what is happening now or accepting what is happening now. I mean, do I have did I have immediate regrets about selling my place? Yes.
Mhm.
Will I have regrets going forward? I don't know because I don't know what's coming. But if you go through life regretting, it's going to be a very difficult life for you. So I need to accept that this is happening. I mean, I have a few more days here. And when things come up, like you just finished saying, which I find is interesting, you have a feeling that there is a big change coming. Maybe you're gonna, I mean, I know how much you love New York, but maybe you're gonna move somewhere. Maybe you're gonna, I mean, I know how we've talked about this before, how much you love London.
Yeah.
I mean, who's to say you couldn't move to London?
Well, and because of the shift for me in focus, like music being center stage now, it's just shifted my like feeling about where I need to be for that. Like, and I keep checking in with myself about how I feel about New York, and I still feel like deep gratitude, love. Like I will always feel that about New York, but I also feel like I don't always need to be here in order to know that.
Yeah.
And so whether that means I'm just, going to be traveling more to some degree, I don't know how. To your point, it is unknown. It's a little bit, scary, but it also, there's where the trust comes in again, just trusting and accepting that in this moment I'm exactly where I need to be. I even my senses of what's to come is exactly what I'm meant to know as I continue to prepare for whatever's on its way. It's not going to happen faster. Like that's another thing I've been really dealing with these days is patience, because we live in a world where you literally can get anything you want almost immediately. And I think that's what causes frustration at a higher level than we used to feel when, like, 20 years ago, when you were okay with things taking time to get to happen because that was normal. Whereas now we have so many expectations immediate that when something doesn't flow, when something doesn't happen quickly, you're like, what? This is so fucking annoying. It's like, is it? Or are you just so used to everything being so fast now that anytime something's a little bit different? So I have to check myself. I'm trying, because I don't want those things to rock my day away just because it didn't happen fast enough.
It's funny as we talk this on this episode, these words, so another word just came to me, and that is excitement.
Mm-hmm.
If you can turn that sort of worry, uh, um, unknown, lack of patience, and is into, you know what, this is kind of exciting. Like,
Surprise.
you in a different way, you know, because I hate the word retired. Um, but we're both in positions where we really can do what we want to do. You've built up your life there, but and at least, I mean, geez, when I think back years ago and when you first started there, I mean, financially, you were like, it was not
Very
good.
different situation.
Yeah. And so that's better.
Yep.
And you have gone through um you've gone through some changes. I mean, you and I have been, best of friends for years now and have seen um and I think because you're younger, um I think there's been more sort of growth and change in you that I've noticed,
Mhm.
but you are getting older and things, your priorities are changing.
Yep.
And I think it's really exciting to watch and go through this journey with you.
Hmm.
And with the music that you're working on, writing the music and your music, and it's like that's been your focus. But as you said, there will be a lot more changes
Yep.
coming, and we don't know. for you or for me what that next thing is. But I would say, even though you don't know, embrace it.
Yeah,
Try not to worry about it. Try to be excited about it. It's okay. You know, I've done a lot of things. You've done a lot of things. What's next?
exactly. There's clearly going to be more.
Yeah, yeah,
And I like that flipping it to excitement when you can.
yeah,
When the worry is like on that edge of like, ooh, it's it's a choice. Sometimes we're overwhelmed. That's,
yeah.
some days are some days, but there's a lot of days where you do have that thing called free will and choice, and to choose to be excited about what you don't know yet that you're going to figure out also puts trust in the past that you've already lived, that you did figure it out in those times too. And so you'll figure it out this time as well.
I was just thinking on whether I put this in or not, when we do our podcast, I mean, we're basically talk about you and me,
Yeah.
but we also know that a lot of the stuff we talk about can we hope and can apply to many people who
Hmm.
choose to listen and
Yeah.
watch us. And hopefully there are some things that we say that help people. But there are people who are saying, yeah, well, it's easy for you guys to say because, you're two single gay men and you're okay financially and blah, blah, blah. What about us who have families and who have to go out and work two and three jobs? And, with all the shit that's going on in the world and the US right now, it's like, we're stuck.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure what to say to those people. Um, other than, you know, even in that scenario, there are lessons to learn.
Mhm.
And there are ways to look at that and say, okay, this is where I'm at. How can I be okay with it? What can I do to make this better?
Yeah.
Even if it's going out for a walk or taking my kid out for a dollar ice cream or something.
Yeah.
You may not be able to change your life like you and I can if we wanted to change it tomorrow. You may not be able to do that because of your responsibilities, but you finish it.
Well, but life is usually small changes. Even if you and I wanted to change everything tomorrow, we wouldn't. It's very rare that it happens like that. Most of life is slow, small, steady steps. And then there's moments when big things happen. But even when those big things happen, like selling your place, the actual transition of it is slow. The decision needed to be made. But for these people who don't feel like they have the ability to change their circumstances like they would want to, it really comes back to, like, which we've talked about many times, just in one day, what can you do that adds to the path towards that big thing? Because if you had asked me when I was in Toronto that this like that I'm going to be here, or where are you going towards, like, I would never have been able to understand or comprehend this life then. And so even in my relationship, let's say, to like money, much more frivolous at one point in my life, and to now be in a place I wasn't always here. I always made it work, but I wasn't always in charge of it, and now I am. So that's just evidence of the journey.
Well, again, a couple things that came to me. We always say you've said this many times, baby steps,
Yeah.
right? And I think the other big important thing to to what I just said is that it also depends on your attitude
Mm-hmm.
and how bad you want something. I mean, there are people who are in horrible situations. You hear of these people who are like famous people now or who are doing something amazing who grew up in such poverty and around gangs and whatever, you know, but they um they had the, what's the word, like not the attitude, but the desire to not want to live like that. But then take it a little further. So these people, we say like, you know, what can you do? Maybe it's like if you really want something, maybe it's getting that second job,
Hmm.
you know, or that third job,
Yeah.
or doing whatever it takes to at least get you on that road to, you know, just a little aside here. You know, for most of the people here in Mexico, I mean, I honestly don't know how they do it. You know, I had somebody here for the weekend and he works for Comcast and he works for a oh, what do you call it? I lost it. Customer service, but the customer service company is actually out of Canada.
Okay.
He makes the equivalent of $20 a day.
Mhm.
And it's mind-boggling. How do you pay your rent? How do you pay your food? I mean, it just, you know, but there too, to me, it's like, okay, so, you know, either try and, you know, better your circumstances by trying to get a better job or getting a second job or something. I don't know what I'm trying to say. And I probably
Well, I
put it
think,
vague, but the point is, what do people do when they're not in the kind of positions we are?
yeah, I think that I'll add to that by saying people know what they know and don't know what they don't know. And so even if they see the world living differently, because now it's easier to see like variety. I mean, when I grew up, I didn't have access to the internet. So what I saw was on television or on heard on the radio. So I didn't know life in New York. Now, if I lived on a farm in Saskatchewan, I could actually watch thousands of videos about what it's like to live in New York. So these people who live differently, I think it's changing because of the internet, but like what I didn't I growing up with -40 winters wasn't harder for me because I didn't know life could not be with -40
Right, right.
winters. So there's an element of you accept your circumstance because it's your circumstance, it's your life. Now, something usually comes into your life that shows you, oh, I really like the city, but I grew up on a farm. How do I? So then you work towards the thing. So in some of these circumstances for these people in Mexico, for example, they see a different life and then they begin to work towards that in some capacity.
Well, no, you have a very good point. When you're in a place where, I mean, every place now, I think almost every place on earth has internet, and almost every person, even kids, have phones. But let's say you're in a place that doesn't have any of that. You're right. You only know what you know. But here in Mexico, like when you're in a place that, you know, more and more Canadians and Americans are taking over, and the locals see how we live and see what we can afford and see what, I mean, then it's like, I don't know. Then I think it's very difficult for them.
And potentially why they want to potentially move. Like they have an image of what it looks like to be a Canadian or an American, and that
Yeah.
image includes money. And so maybe that motivates them to want to live there, ironically, because then you would be living in a very different climate. But
Well, I think you had the word, it's motivation. You
mhm.
know, I've often said to people here, you know, you really, I know you live in Mexico, but if you really want to better your life, you have to learn English.
Well, that's an easy step that not easy. That
Yeah.
is a step that most people can take in some capacity, but that requires, I mean, even me learning Spanish, like I mean, thank God that app like just draws me in to keep my streak because if it didn't, I wouldn't know what I know right now. And that's just purely like a ego boost that I can say I've been doing it for 456 days. But that's enough motivation for me. And it's not enough to like be fluent, but it is enough that I am starting to use it when I'm interacting with people that know
Right,
Spanish.
right.
Frustrating most of the times because I still don't know it, but it's more than I did.
Well, it's all part of that. What I was saying before, it's all part of the your motivation, your attitude, your desire. Like, what is it that if you really want something,
Yep.
you know, yes, it's a lot harder for some people, but if you really want something, because people have gone from nothing to something big,
Yeah.
then you can make it happen.
And you
But
will figure it out.
if you want to,
Yes.
you have to want to. Again, I've told many of these guys, I've given them, not that I'm God, but I've given them like the answer of how to make this happen. But they have to want it themselves.
Exactly.
So, all
Yeah.
right, let's wrap this up. I did, yeah, again,
Again.
it's kind of about me. Well, it started that way anyways.
It always finds its way. It weaves its own web and is always connected to past conversations, which is why I love the ongoing
Yeah.
the way we do it. We always tie back to other things we've said before. So
And it's kind of, you know, I just sort of realized something. We talk about life stuff, but we talk about our life stuff.
yeah, but that and
No?
I think we do it. I'm glad we do it that way because that's the most powerful experience I can speak from is my life.
Yes. And if we're going through it, there are many other people that are going through it. And, you know, I mean, I know some people who watch us. I don't know how many people watch us, but I know some people who watch us.
Yeah.
And thank you for
And I
watching.
know that they appreciate our honesty.
Yeah.
Um, this reminds me of a new podcast that I've been listening to that's Amy Poehler does. I don't know if you know who Amy Poehler is,
Yeah.
SNL.
Yeah.
And they always end, which I kind of think we could do too, is like end with something that's like making you laugh or bringing you joy this week as just a way for like if somebody else resonates with it, they'll go watch it themselves. So I'm going to say listening to Amy Poehler's podcast has brought me lots of joy this week and has made me like laugh out loud watching her. She's got amazing guests, and I'm curious what has brought you joy this week or what made
Well,
you laugh.
I mean, that's how we started out this episode is what brought me joy was my whole day yesterday.
Yeah,
Everything that flowed and, you know, yeah. I mean, whenever I go on my hike, it's my happy place.
totally.
So yes, yesterday that's what brought me joy. And, I think when we talk about joy, we have to remember, okay, so try and put more of that into your life.
Yeah.
What really does bring you joy, and how can you get more of that? How can you do more of that?
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say that was my joy, and I'm I'm feeling sad, but also somewhat excited, looking forward to whatever the next chapter is. Um so yeah, I mean, we on this episode we talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about me.
We talked about well, it started with us talking about this transition that you're about to go through, and that you're seeing your place with slightly different eyes because of knowing that you're gonna say goodbye to this version of it, and that led us to a conversation about the transitions in life and how we can accept them, how we can trust what's coming next, and maybe be even more a little bit excited sometimes rather than worried all the time about what's around the other corner that you don't know. Because that is just what's going to keep happening for the rest of it. Like we are different ages, but we relate to that because we're both doing that in our own way. And I think for the young ones out there, it's like this is never going to stop happening because you can attest to that.
And we talked about lessons. There's Life is always about lessons,
Yeah.
and everything we do. It's also about our attitude.
Mhm.
Um,
And it is more about the journey than it is about the big destinations.
and change is constant. And how do you deal with that? And so
Yeah.
that's what we talked about. I think
Great
it was good.
episode. I
Yeah.
do too.
Yeah, I think it was a good.
And that feels like the end of it.
That feels like the end of it. So we'll see you next time
See you next time, folks.
and have a lovely day, week.
And happy spring
Happy spring. Yes,
if you're in the northern hemisphere.
exactly. All right.
All right.
See ya.
Mwah. Bye.
Bye.